What did they do?
Welcome to Screen Crush, I'm Ryan Airy. If you're a detail-minded fan of the MCU, then you probably noticed something familiar about the opening of Loki's Season 1 finale. The tunnels of light are very similar to the vision that the Ancient One showed Doctor Strange. Marvel being Marvel, I knew this couldn't be a coincidence, so I went through these two scenes frame by frame. And I'm going to break down their full meaning, similarities, and how they connect to Thor Ragnarok and what all of this means for the future of the MCU. So first, let's get started with Doctor Strange's vision, which the crew nicknamed the Magical Mystery Tour. The scene begins with Strange saying,
You're just another tiny, momentary speck within an indifferent universe.
And the Ancient One's about to show him how right he is. When she forces his astral form out of his body, she says,
For a moment, you entered the astral dimension.
So just like the sorcerers draw power from other dimensions to create objects, taking an astral form is entering another dimension. I'm saying all this because the astral dimension is also part of the multiverse that we explored in Loki. She tells him,
Open your eyes.
Which is kind of a nod to the comics, where Doctor Strange would actually manifest a third eye on his forehead. But also, this third eye is an ancient mystical concept about seeing beyond the ordinary world. It's a gateway that leads to the inner realm of higher consciousness. Nearly every religion acknowledges the importance of a mystical eye. In particular, in Hinduism, Shiva has a third eye on his forehead that allows him to watch over the entire world. Then, Strange's mind is catapulted out of Kamar-Taj into the atmosphere. Detractors of Doctor Strange criticize the movie for repeating too many beats of Iron Man. Successful D-bag has an accident, a spiritual awakening, then stops an evil version of himself from usurping his power for evil. Now, this scene is also a neat contrast to Iron Man and actually sets the two characters apart from one another. Tony flew too high and his armor iced over, a metaphor for how he shouldn't allow his ego to go out of control and he had to overcome his limitations. Whereas for Steven, his trip into the atmosphere is the very first step in showing him that he does not have limitations. Then he encounters a butterfly, which creates a moment of stillness. The butterfly has many symbolic meanings. It represents metamorphosis from the caterpillar, just as Strange spends the movie in his own metamorphosis. And because of this symbolism, many cultures see the butterfly as a symbol of rebirth and resurrection. But the butterfly is often seen as a symbol of the soul, and this is well timed, because Strange just told the Ancient One that he does not believe in duality.
There is no such thing as spirit. We are made of matter and nothing more.
That is, he believes that human beings are just meat and bones, not filled with any spiritual energy. This vision is altering that belief and making him reborn into a new world of consciousness. After Strange touches the butterfly, he's slingshotted forward. First, he's in orbit around the Earth, reaching its dark side where you can see the cities lit up below, but then he starts to warp. The rotation of the Earth is indicative of the passage of time. Because of gravity and relativity, objects in orbit around the Earth actually age slightly slower, but spinning faster and faster makes time move faster, propelling Strange's astral form past the speed of light. Now, when he moves faster than light, the Earth's image slowly bends into a wormhole, or an Einstein-Rosen bridge. And where have we seen these before?
Like an Einstein-Rosen bridge?
More like a rainbow bridge.
The Bifrost is essentially a wormhole device that creates Einstein-Rosen bridges on demand. And you can see similarities between Strange's tunnel and the Bifrost. Also, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that all of these are inspired by the third act of 2001: A Space Odyssey, and also Doctor Who. This is where we start to see many of the visuals that are going to be repeated in Loki, which I'm going to dive into a little later in the video. One thing that makes Doctor Strange work so well is that the entire movie is presented as a lesson to a cynic like Steven. In the same way, the Ancient One and Mordo are encouraging the audience to see past our own limited view of the universe, and that's really what life is about, learning to grow and share new skills. That's why I joined Skillshare, the sponsor of this video. See, I've spent the past few years working on a novel, but I really don't know much about publishing or self-publishing, InDesign, or really anything. So I started Skillshare classes to help me hone my novel and walk me through self-publishing. And these are just a few of the thousands of classes they offer for creative people like us. Maybe you want to do what I do and make YouTube videos, and you want to fill your videos with slick motion graphics. There's classes waiting for you. Next, I'm going to start classes on comic book writing because that's that's a lifelong dream of mine. And I'm also interested in starting my own podcast. There's classes on everything from what gear to buy to how to publish your episodes. Or maybe you're already an artist and you want to learn how to sell your work freelance. Then you can join one of Skillshare's many business classes. Plus, they're always launching new premium classes, so there really is something for everyone. The site is here for you to learn, so there are no ads. This helps you stay focused and follow your own creative voice. The first 1,000 of our subscribers who click the link in the description will get a free trial of a premium membership so you can explore your creativity. When Strange enters the Tunnel of Light, we hear thunder. And remember, in Loki's penultimate episode, Alioth was also essentially a giant time storm. So it could be that as Strange moves through time and space, he's hearing Alioth, or he's hearing the disruptions and branching to the timeline that are such a big part of episode 6. I mean, look, I don't think Doctor Strange director Scott Derrickson knew that someday there would be a Loki TV show that would introduce a giant puppy time cloud, but it's cool to see how these ideas have been picked up and carried on by other writers. This storm in a wormhole is also like the Bifrost, which appears as a storm whenever Thor summons it. Back to Strange's vision. His mind briefly lands back in a chair before the Ancient One slingshots him back out. Next, he's propelled against a colorful background by a ball of fire. This fire slowly pushes its way into his body and becomes a part of him, firing beams of light from his arms and legs. Fire is also interesting symbolically. It can be used to destroy, but it's also the source of civilization and enlightenment. In nature, fires often spur the forest to grow. In the Greek myth of Prometheus, the Titan gives fire to mankind, so in essence it's the power of the gods. In many ways, Strange is being imbued with this same heavenly power. Notice that those beams and the streaks of color around him are all colors of different Infinity Stones. The stones were forged in the furnace of creation, and each embody a different aspect of existence in our dimension. So it could be that Strange has entered into the essence of the universe. This is where the energy of the Infinity Stones actually exists. This is why, say, Captain Marvel and Wanda still have their powers after Thanos destroyed the stones. The physical objects may be gone, but their energy remains in this space. And Strange is discovering that the power of the stones moves through him and all living things. But then, and look, this part is super cool, you have to look at it one frame at a time. Strange is propelled downward into the center of a coalescing orb made of different dark shapes. In one frame, you can see that his physical form is actually watching himself fall. He's seeing a version of himself that contains the energy of the Infinity Stones. That's the energy of life, and it's being pulled downward into entropy and death. A shockwave backfires, and for a moment, we see Strange's body in various stages of decay. Again, indicating that the force he's looking at is the embodiment of entropy. The idea that all things will eventually fall into death and chaos. The camera pulls back to reveal that he's caught in the eye of this force, which looks like a hungry, pulsating maw. It draws him downward, where his body is constantly destroyed and remade. This is very similar to the dusting after the Infinity Stones wipe people from existence, and I don't think that's necessarily an accident. As we saw in Endgame, Far From Home, and WandaVision, the people who were dusted were not really gone. Like the stones themselves, their energy remained in the universe, and they were reformed. Just as Strange's essence is not destroyed, simply taken apart and remade. This is taken from the scientific principle, the law of conservation of energy, which states that energy cannot be destroyed, it can only change form.
When we die, our bodies become the grass, and the antelope eat the grass. And so, we are all connected.
Strange is pulled toward this fire, maybe the same furnace of creation that created the stones, where the universe's energy will someday return. This theory is called the Big Crunch. It basically states that the universe was born at the Big Bang, it expands until it reaches a certain point, and then condenses back into a singular tiny point, Big Crunch, and the whole process begins anew. This also speaks to the Norse idea of Ragnarok, of birth, death, and rebirth, which is also symbolized by this Dugan symbol that we see all throughout the show Loki. So it turns out that this maw is yet another gateway to a realm filled with these same furnaces, birthing and destroying different multiverses and dimensions, each governed by their own laws of physics. Now, I'm not just making all this up, by the way. The Ancient One calls this place
Root of existence.
and then goes on to say that this is where
Mind and matter meet.
This is also a very nice meta touch. Because this is a fictional comic book universe, the root of existence is centered on the mind creating something physical, just like it was the minds of creators Steve Ditko and Stan Lee who gave Doctor Strange a physical representation, his comics. So this place, the root of existence, is what some people call the hand dimension, but that's not correct. The reason why there are endless hands is because Strange is obsessed with his own hands, and this dimension gives those thoughts physical form. It could be that because Strange is horrified by his hands that these visions take on a nightmarish form, or maybe maybe, just maybe, this is the realm of one of his greatest villains, Nightmare. In the comics, Nightmare rules over the Nightmare Dimension, which we could be seeing here and might actually see in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. As the hands decay, they piece together to show Strange's head, to show how his obsession with his disability is rotting away his mind. Then he's forced to enter his own eye, which has several spiritual meanings. During the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus told his followers, "How can you say to your brother, 'Let me take the speck out of your eye,' when all the time there is a plank in your own eye? You hypocrite. First take the plank out of your own eye, then you will see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye." In other words, Strange has to stop passing judgment on others and re-examine his own views of the universe. He journeys into his own eye to express that to overcome his fear of losing his hands, he must come to understand himself better and see how small he really is in the scale of the universe. As he moves out of this dimension, the Ancient One says,
This universe is only one of an infinite number.
Again, she's talking about the multiverse. This movie confirms that she knows about the multiverse, but Avengers Endgame also confirmed that she knows how new timelines and realities were created.
Remove one of the stones, and that close splits. In this new branch reality, without our chief weapon against the forces of darkness, our world would be overrun.
Next, Strange enters the quantum realm, as Scott Derrickson confirmed in the audio commentary.
This image here obviously is a nod to Ant-Man and the quantum realm.
This is more than just an Easter egg. The Ancient One calls this place
Benevolent and life-giving.
Now, we already know that the quantum realm can be used to time travel, but remember, traveling through time also creates a branch in the timeline, creating an alternate reality. In many ways, creating new life. So the quantum realm is also a passageway into the multiverse. Some people, including us, have even theorized the TVA is inside the quantum realm. And remember, the energy of the quantum realm was also life-giving for Ghost in Ant-Man and the Wasp. Strange then briefly passes through the mirror dimension to show the underside of the quantum realm, the dark dimension. Just like how time works differently in the quantum realm, time does not exist in the dark dimension. Damn it! This blacklight poster dimension is fully inspired by the psychedelic work of Steve Ditko. This is where Strange had his first run-in with Dormammu, and as he approaches him, he enters this Russian doll-like nightmare, where a single moment of terror is repeated again and again. This, of course, is foreshadowing the ending where Strange commits suicide countless times to defeat his enemy with boredom.
Make this stop! Set me free!
By the way, here's a side theory. Maybe Malekith and the Dark Elves were trying to summon Dormammu from the Dark Dimension. All we know is that they came from darkness and wanted to bring the darkness back, so that would make sense, right? That would be a cool retcon that would make that movie a lot better. Then comes the line that Scott Derrickson said is the most important in the movie.
Who are you in this vast multiverse? Mr. Strange?
Notice how she calls him Mr. instead of Doctor.
Mr. Doctor.
Which is rather insulting because he didn't go to Strange Medical School to be called Mr. Thank you very much.
Doctor Strange, not Master Strange, not Mr. Strange. Doctor Strange.
This isn't just an insult. This is telling Stephen that he's no longer a medical doctor, and the knowledge that he has gained in the past is now insignificant.
Your intellect has taken you far in life, but it will take you no further. Surrender, Stephen. Silence your ego.
She's also asking him to reevaluate his own self-importance and his role in existence, which is the whole point of the movie. And for the purposes of this video, it's most important to me that she actually name-checks the multiverse. This confirms that all of these worlds that we just saw are part of the multiverse of Loki, which that show elegantly confirmed at the start of episode 6. The opening of that episode begins with various sound bites from the MCU. Now, other channels and Redditors have made supercuts of every clip, which are very, very cool. You should check them out.
You wouldn't have heard of me.
Let me put you on hold.
Dance off, bro. He's a friend from work.
I can do this all day.
But it's important to note when these clips play. The majority of the MCU clips play over the Marvel Studios logo, a way to say that these are all sounds of this universe. And then we hard cut to a sun and we hear... This is lifted from the lecture by Alan Watts, Time and the More It Changes. Watts claims that time has no real beginning or end. It simply is because it's always in motion. You can't find the beginning of time any more than you can find the beginning of a sphere.
People assume that time is a strict progression of cause to effect, but actually, from a non-linear, non-subjective viewpoint, it's more like a big ball of wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey stuff.
Showrunner Michael Waldron confirmed to Screen Crush that this is how he views time operating in the show. We covered this in another video that you should really check out, but here's a clip. Waldron told Screen Crush, "The best I can explain it is that our approach with time travel was the philosophy that basically time is always happening. So there are infinite instances of time occurring all at once. Now, as Watts is speaking, we hear a baby crying. That baby is Loki, on the rocks, waiting to die. This is saying that Loki is the locus of all these realities. They are like nexus beings. Events in the multiverse are coalescing around them. So we continue to pull away, seeing a mysterious spaceship, theories, tell me in the comments, briefly here hooked on a feeling to indicate that we're entering the part of the universe where the Guardians of the Galaxy live. Then we pull back to reveal galaxies, nebulae, an endless universe, and that universe is contained within a single sphere, much like the spheres of creation that we saw in Strange's vision. Suddenly, we're thrown back into the sphere, then pull back to reveal that we are actually inside of a black hole. Now, black holes are very weird and frankly hard to explain in a video that's about Marvel stuff, but essentially, their gravity is so strong that even light can't escape them. Because of this, no one knows what's inside a black hole, but Stephen Hawking theorized that they could lead to other universes, which is what we're seeing here. The camera pulls back, then presses into another black hole, another dimension. Again, very similar to the pulsating spheres that Strange encountered that pulled him through the multiverse. So notice that the sound bites in this space are from our world.
To experience peace.
Because now we're hovering in the space between fictional realities. And what lives in the space between fictional universes? What being can thumb through collections of DVDs and comics? Us. This is the camera briefly occupying the real world, taking all of us on a journey through this fictional multiverse. When we enter the black hole, we hear classic Loki, indicating that we're arriving closer to the present in the Loki show. The next wormhole tunnel looks exactly like what we saw in Doctor Strange. This is the moment that links these two visions. Both Strange and Loki are moving through different dimensions. The planets briefly stretch out, just like Strange's vision was skewed before he was slingshotted into the other realities. Then we see a color palette like the place where Strange encountered the energy of the Infinity Stones. So this gradually fades into the individual timelines that make up the one sacred timeline. Each of these bands of light contain trillions of lives, hopes, dreams, and stories, and it ends with Sylvie's voice.
Open your eyes!
And that's when we realize that this entire sequence was actually Loki's vision from the ending of episode 5. Sylvie and Loki joined forces to enchant Alioth, briefly making mental contact with a being that exists in the cracks of the fabric of time. Alioth is touching the entire multiverse at once, and very briefly, so did Loki. That's what this entire opening sequence is. Loki, like Doctor Strange, briefly experienced a higher form of consciousness. That is, until Sylvie's voice draws him back.
Open your eyes!
I love these subtle connections between these two MCU sorcerers, but then again, this could all just be some production designers taking peyote and looking at Trapper Keepers. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments or at me on Twitter, and if it's your first time here, please subscribe. For Screen Crush, I'm Ryan Airy.